You're watching Rogers TV, Grey County.
Welcome to Grey County Life at Home. I'm your host today, Mary J. Murray. And Rhonda Brown is off today, but we're looking forward to her being back next week. So our filming date today is March the 8th, and it is International Women's Day. And we want to recognize and honor all women locally, nationally, and globally. Now, normally at this time in the program, Rhonda and I give a lot of updates around community events and what's happening. And today, it's always difficult for me to banter with myself. So I have invited Norm and Kim from Intersections Wood Collaborative. I'm terribly sorry. Intersections Wood Collaborative, because something really curious has come up. And I really want to know, why can't sheep be more like trees? Welcome, Norm, and welcome, Kim.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us or having us here, Mary Jane. Yeah.
So tell us, Norm, if you want to start off and tell us a little bit about Intersections and how it works, and then we'll go into an upcoming event.
Sure. Actually, I'm going to turn that over to Kim. She's the one that puts on most of our programming, so she'll be able to talk to that better than I can. So over to you, Kim.
Okay. So Intersections Wood Collaborative, we are a not-for-profit woodworking and wood turning studio. And our goal is to provide a friendly, welcoming center for people to come in, rent the workspace for their own project, or to take one of our many programs and workshops that we're offering. This is a special time for us. It's our 1-year anniversary. We became incorporated a year ago, and looking forward to continuing to develop the services that we offer for everybody. So we provide a number of different programs. We provide programs for individuals who want to learn about woodworking or wood turning. We've started offering International Women's Day. We've started offering courses for women specifically in woodworking, and soon to present some courses in wood turning as well. And the response has been overwhelmingly good. We've got a waiting list for those. We also provide opportunities for groups to get together and do projects. This has been a wonderful thing. We've had families come in and work on paddle making. We have had the elders and teens from McWickadon come in and do make paddles together. So families, couples, groups, friends, book space to learn the kinds of things that they're interested in learning. If you want to find out more about our courses and a little bit more about our history, you can go to our website and it will direct you. There's some information there, or it will direct you to our site where we actually sell tickets for our courses at Eventbrite. And I think that's it. Back to you, Norm.
Yeah, so April 1st, we're celebrating that 1-year anniversary that Kim was mentioning, and we're bringing in Dan Needles, who's out near Creemore, famous Canadian humorist and writer, playwright, won the Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor. So he's, I think, fairly well known. He writes a column on the Bay that a lot of people might have read. So it's going to be an evening of laughter, and we're going to have dessert and a cash bar, silent auction. And so we're looking forward to socializing and celebrating with people that care about intersections, but also may just want to have a night out with a little bit of yucks, and also to raise money for intersections so we can continue to do the kind of work that Kim was talking about. So tickets are $35 each. You can buy them either at Intersections, which is on 10th Street East and 3rd, or you can, in sound, or you can buy them online. And you go to our website at www.intersectionsstudio.com and go to the events and workshop tab that Kim was talking about, and it'll take you off to our ticketing thing. So we got some great art on silent auction, some beautiful wood objects, but also pottery and glassworks and small pieces of furniture and so on. And there's been a group project underway at Intersections where wood strip canoe and little nymph, it's called, and will be Rob Snyder from the Snyder Auction will be auctioning that live on the evening as well. So that should be fun. Yeah.
Well, I've been seeing pictures of the nymph, and it's absolutely stunning. Now, will that be on display? Because your event is at the Harmony Center.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you buy tickets on the evening of, or do you always have to have your tickets purchased prior?
We will be. They should be available on the evening unless we get sold out. But we're encouraging people to buy them ahead of time. It's just easier for us to take tickets at the door than to be doing a transaction at the door. But we will have a credit card, and cash payment would be accepted at the door as well.
Okay, well, that's great for people to know. So sometimes people, we know in Owen Sound, they make their decisions at the last minute and as to what they're going to do that night. But I have been following Intersections on my Facebook page, and the items that are coming up for auctions is stunning, absolutely beautiful. Now, the nymph canoe is going to be
yeah, it will be there. In fact, all the auction items will be there. So during the silent auction, people can walk around and look at the objects and bid. And but the nymph, we're expecting to do a live auction. So
wonderful. Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you both back on Grey County Life. You're always welcome to return, and we'll be back right after these messages.
Thanks for now.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
When it comes to drugs, how much freedom is too much for kids? Drugs are out there. Will my teen feel free to say no around other kids? I didn't live drug-free when I was younger. Can I admit that to my kids? Drugs worry me, but how can I feel free to talk about it with my kids?
Questions about drugs and kids? Call or chat to get real-time support.
You've got the magic in you.
Sundays.
We're celebrating 21 years of making dreams come true.
City TV has the all-new season of American Idol.
This is going to change your life. You have a yes from me.
You're going to Hollywood.
When it's this real.
You're making these grown men cry.
I got to give him a hug.
You feel it.
What does being on American Idol mean to you?
American Idol. All new. Sundays, 8, 7 Central on City TV. Or stream on City TV Plus, the app, or citytv.com.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
Welcome back to Grey County Life at Home. We're continuing the program with to public health nurses from Grey Bruce Public Health, because I have been watching on my Facebook page that there has been overdose alerts happening in our community, and I was becoming very concerned about what was happening. So we have Kelsey Mighton and Kelsey Waters, and they're going to share a PowerPoint around some of the situations around the overdose alert. So Kelsey Mighton, would you like to start the PowerPoint?
Sure. I'm just going to share my screen and get the presentation going. All right, can you guys all see that? Yeah. Great. So as Mary Jane said, we're here today to talk about public health opioid overdose alerts, and we'll also touch on the opioid crisis a little bit, and also what you need to know as community members. And so as Mary Jane mentioned, some of you may have seen this media release and overdose alert that came out from Public Health on February 27th. I put it up on the screen here in case you missed it. And so in this release, we described how there had been 3 suspected opioid overdoses in 48 hours, one of which was fatal in Grey and Bruce last week. And so for anyone who doesn't know, we do send out these alert messages to warn the community that there may be dangerous opioids circulating that have been associated with suspected clusters of opioid overdoses and or deaths. Every release will typically have certain details in it. For example, the number of overdoses, the time frame, and where in Grey Bruce they occurred. There may be other information like route of administration, like was it through inhalation or injection, or maybe some details about what the substance looked like. So from this media release, purple and yellow fentanyl were mentioned. Media releases also include information about mental health and addiction services locally, as well as some harm reduction tips people can use to lower overdose risk if they are using drugs. And so this is all part of our Grey Bruce opioid overdose early warning system. And so in case you don't know what that is, in Grey Bruce, when paramedics attend a suspected opioid overdose call, they send an email alert to us at Public Health. We monitor those emails and we issue these media releases when needed. We also get some information about suspected opioid overdoses and deaths from police and fire services in the region, as well as from the 211 service. And then Public Health will respond to these opioid-related events when needed, and we'll work with our community partner organizations to do that. And each situation will be slightly different and tailored to the situation, but in the past, it's involved naloxone distribution and overdose prevention training, as well as on-site mental health support and intake to services for those who have been impacted. And just briefly, we wanted to provide some very brief background information for anybody who doesn't know what exactly an opioid is. And so opioids, if you don't know, they are medications that are typically prescribed by a healthcare provider for pain. That's the main purpose. But they can also produce euphoria, which makes them prone to being misused. They're part of a category of drugs called depressants, which actually can slow down the part of the brain that controls breathing. And so if a person takes too much of an opioid for the body to handle, breathing can slow, become erratic, or stop altogether. This chart on the left shows some common opioids and their chemical and brand names. So some examples that you may have heard of include fentanyl, heroin, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, morphine, and methadone. And so we have prescription opioids in Canada, and we also have opioids that are produced in unregulated settings where the production isn't controlled. And so there's no way to know what you're truly getting. And then those are sold in the unregulated market. And prescription opioids are also diverted to the unregulated market as well. And so we send out these alerts because, unfortunately, we are facing an opioid crisis that is claiming lives every single day. And the roots of this crisis are very complex, and there's a lot of interrelated factors. And so we won't get into all of them today, but we will say that while prescription opioids have contributed to this crisis, it's really the toxic, unregulated supply of drugs with fentanyl and fentanyl analogs and other opioids being added to them that's causing many opioid-related harms and deaths. The issue with fentanyl and some of these other substances is you can't see, smell, or taste it, so there's no way to know what you're truly getting, and a very, very small amount can be deadly. What's even more concerning is that other substances are being detected alongside opioids by drug checking services. So things like nitazines, which are as strong or up to 10 to 20 times stronger than fentanyl, benzodiazepines and derivatives, which are used to treat anxiety, insomnia, and alcohol withdrawal. And even more concerning, xylazine, which is actually a horse tranquilizer, and it's not intended for human consumption. And so all of these substances fall into that same category of drugs called depressants, meaning they can all affect breathing. And so these opioids are, like fentanyl, are dangerous on their own, but when combined with one or more of these depressants, it can result in prolonged sedation and a really dangerous effect on breathing, putting people at risk of victimization, overdose, and death. And so many people may be surprised to learn that the opioid crisis, it actually predates the pandemic by over a decade. Since 2016 alone, there have been more than 9,000 apparent opioid-related deaths in Canada. In 2017, approximately 11 lives were lost each day to opioid overdose across the country. The COVID-19 response, it required waves of public health restrictions, which were needed to stop the spread of the virus, led to unintended harms for people who use drugs. So things like reduced access to services and isolation, leading to more people using alone. And when no one's there to respond, obviously that risk of fatal overdose is really increased. And so what we saw during the pandemic was all of these unintended harms really combined to create an acceleration of opioid-related deaths. And that's what's being shown on this graph here. And so the red line indicates when that state of emergency was declared in Ontario. And you can see, so the bars are the opioid-related deaths. And you can see that there was an increase in opioid-related deaths following that state of emergency declaration and during the pandemic. From 2019 to 2020, there was actually a 60% increase in opioid-related deaths in Ontario. And that pattern was mirrored at the level of Grey Bruce. So this graph shows deaths in Grey Bruce due to opioid overdose from the early 2000s until 2021. And so you can see in the last couple of years that we've had a steady increase of opioid-related deaths, with 38 opioid-related deaths in 2021, which was a 46% increase from the year prior. And so today we just really wanted to share some simple things that community members can do to help us address the opioid crisis. So one would be to learn about supports and services available for mental health and addictions and to direct family and friends to them if needed, to get naloxone and overdose prevention training, to help reduce stigma surrounding substance use, returning unused and expired medication to the pharmacy, and to get educated on the topic. So we thought we'd start with our own Grey Bruce Public Health Harm Reduction Program. And so at its very basic level, what harm reduction is, as its name implies, is just reducing harms associated with a behavior or activity without attaching the expectation that you wouldn't participate in that activity. And so I'll engage in harm reduction every day to minimize risk to ourselves and to others. So things like wearing helmets while riding a bike, wearing seatbelts while in a car, wearing life jackets, all of these things are everyday harm reduction and kind of harm reduction at its most basic. Harm reduction in the context of substance use involves working with people who use drugs to help them make their drug use safer. And so it's really about working with the people where they're at, and it's person-centered, and it recognizes that abstinence and a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work for everyone. And so through our needle syringe program, we offer single-use sterile equipment to inject or smoke drugs. And we offer this equipment so that people can make drug use safer, to reduce infections and injuries that are costly to treat and a danger to individual and community health. We offer biohazardous waste containers and disposal of used equipment to help reduce the risk of accidental needle stick injury in the community. Research shows that people will actually dispose of their equipment safely if they have a means to do so. We offer overdose prevention training and naloxone, which again, we'll talk about more in a few minutes, and referrals to health and social services and practical supports like hygiene kits. We also have resources regarding the safe disposal of found needles if you require it. So we have our Be Smart with Sharps poster, which walks you through the steps of how to safely dispose of a found needle or drug equipment. We have the safe disposal bins, the picture in the middle, which will contain everything a person needs to safely dispose of found needles or drug equipment in the community. And we have these available for pickup at public health and videos showing the process online. And the safe needle drop box is what we have outside public health, and it's where our harm reduction program participants can drop off their used equipment. We collect between 1,000 to 2,000 needles per month in the drop box. And these are some of our needle syringe program partner sites that are contracted through public health to deliver harm reduction from their organizations. And so with the help of these partners, we've really been able to build a network of agencies offering harm reduction services throughout Grey Bruce, so really reducing barriers to service access. Now I'll hand it over to Kelsey so she can talk about SOS.
Thanks, Kelsey. So we're going to briefly talk about community supports and services, in particular SOS, which is known as Supportive Outreach Services. So the goal of this program is to reduce barriers for services to services for people with complex needs, including substance use, poverty, precarious housing, homelessness, food insecurity, mental health concerns, domestic violence, and/or underlying medical conditions. In addition, a mobile team was initiated, which is comprised of a paramedic, a nurse practitioner, a mental health counselor, and a harm reduction worker. And their role is to visit clients in their homes to provide medical and mental health support and case management. They also can take clients to appointments if that is a service that is also needed. As well, SOS offers multiple co-located services, which is known as the fixed sites. And they provide services such as support for housing, employment, legal and mental health services, access to food hampers, hot meals, hygiene supplies, harm reduction equipment, naloxone, primary medical care, and so much more. And there's actually a fixed site event occurring today in Owen Sound, Wednesday, March 8th at the Farmers Market, and the hours are from 1 to 3. And then next Wednesday, it's in Hanover at the Civic Center, which is again 1 to 3. Next slide, please. Thanks. So there are many other community supports and services available to help people with substance use concerns in Grey Bruce. Examples of these services are shown in the slide. If people are unsure which service is best for them, they can call Connex Ontario at the number shown in the green card on the right for help with accessing addiction, mental health, and problem gambling services. Another option is to call 211. Connex Ontario and 211 act as filters to community supports and services, helping people find what help is available near them. Another way you can help address the opioid crisis is to get a naloxone kit and learn how to use it. Naloxone is extremely effective in reversing opioid overdose. Benzodiazepines and xylazine, which are being found alongside opioids in the unregulated drug supply, are not opioids and therefore will not respond to naloxone. As we know, naloxone only responds to opioids. Despite this, people are encouraged to administer naloxone in the event of any suspected overdose, as the drugs causing the overdose may involve an opioid. In concurrent opioid and benzodiazepine overdose, naloxone may restore and improve breathing, but the person may not regain consciousness for hours due to the sedation from the benzos. People are encouraged to monitor breathing and call 911. Next slide, thanks. So now we're going to review some overdose prevention strategies. Learning about ways to lower overdose risk and sharing this information with people in your lives who are using substances is another way to help address the opioid crisis. We encourage people to avoid mixing drugs. Mixing drugs, including alcohol, increases overdose risk. If a person is going to mix drugs, we encourage them to use one drug at a time and to use less of each substance. The unregulated drug supply is unpredictable and toxic, and drugs have inconsistent quality and strength. So we encourage people to start with a low dose and slowly increase the amount they are using. We encourage people to be aware of their tolerance to opioids. Opioid tolerance rapidly decreases with short periods of non-use. If someone has a break from using, they should start with a smaller dose if they return to using opioids. Using alone is a major risk for fatal overdose. If a person loses consciousness, they cannot help themselves. we always encourage people to have a sober friend there, ready to respond with naloxone and call 911. If a person is going to use a loan, they could tell someone and ask if that friend checks on them. They can also call the National Overdose Response Service, which is known as NORS, and someone will stay on the line and call for help if a person does not respond. The Brave app will also alert paramedics if a person is using a loan and does not respond. And the NORS number is 1-888-688-6677. Now we're going to briefly touch on how stigma contributes to the opioid crisis and how you can help end stigma. Stigma is negative attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors about or towards a group of people because of their situation in life. It includes discrimination, prejudice, judgment, and stereotypes, which can isolate people who use drugs. People who use drugs face this stigma because of social and cultural beliefs about the use of certain drugs and current drug laws. Stigma also results from a lack of knowledge about addiction and how addiction works. Stigma is a major barrier that prevents people from seeking help because they are afraid of judgment or getting in trouble with work or loved ones or the law. Stigma may lead to people hiding their use and using in unsafe ways. It affects a person's ability to find housing and jobs, which affects their health and the quality of life. Stigma contributes to people receiving a lower quality of care when they access services. So you can help reduce stigma by changing the way you talk about substance use. Language matters, and the words we have use power to set up walls or facilitate connection, especially when it comes to the topic of substance use. Using person-first language means simply saying the word person before whatever you are trying to describe. For example, referring to someone as an addict reduces their identity to their drug use. Instead, try saying person with a substance use disorder, and notice how it changes the tone of the conversation. If you know the substance that was used, you can specify. For example, instead of saying alcoholic, say person with an alcohol use disorder. Instead of saying a person is clean, you can say a person is not actively using.
At this point, Kelsey, both of you have given us an amazing amount of information, and I really hate to break in at this point because I know that you're not quite finished, and we might have you come back another time to give us this information. I have learned so much from the two of you in your presentation today, that you have really given a great community message. And I'm so glad that we got the PowerPoints up and running without the technical difficulties that we started with.
Treaty in Cree is Naskometoin, an oral agreement. And our agreements were always spoken. For George Spence, the core of treaty was Wichihioin, to help one another.
And so we, the commissioners...
He was there for the making of Treaty 9, where the Cree were told...
We will honor this agreement together, for as long as the sun shines and the waters flow.
The Cree made their mark because they were assured that the land would be shared, and they would always be able to harvest what they needed. George Spence was my great-grandfather. In his life, he saw many promises of the treaty go unfulfilled.
Treaties were essential to the creation of Canada. First Nations still fight for the agreements to be honored.
Hi, I'm David Shearman, host of Politically Speaking. Join me for the next show, where Dave Carr will be talking to Rick Byers, MPP for Bruce Grey Owen Sound. Politically Speaking on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Gray County Life at Home. And we're continuing our show with wonderful guests. And I am so pleased to introduce Raven. And he is a member of the Digging Roots, and it's a husband and wife. His wife is Shoshana. And they are the beating hearts of Digging Roots and their music. And so welcome, Raven, and please introduce yourself.
Hey, ani kwekwe sego Raven Jichkaznan nin Anishinaabe Asij Ongwehoe Makwadodam Asij Wageniado.
Miigwech, thank you. And I had the pleasure of listening to your videos in preparation for the conversation today. And we can talk about that in a moment. But you do have a gig tonight. This is March 8th in Meaford. But tell us about some of the other dates that you have coming up.
Yeah, we're doing this Ontario tour, which is really exciting because we've been doing international tours. So it's kind of nice to play at home, so instead of going to the States or South Africa or Paris and London, we're in Ontario, which is great, which just means that I'll be home earlier. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited because we're nominated for a Juno. And we get to share that album that we've been nominated with everyone in our community. So it's just an exciting time. And we have a full band of 6 people. So, we're going to fill all the rooms and just, bring some good music to everyone.
Well, that's good, and I'm sorry that I'm going to miss the performance tonight in Meaford. But one of the elements that I do in preparation for the show is to go online, and I listen to some of your music and your videos, and I was so deeply impacted by The Healer and how powerful it was, how impactful it was, and dramatic. But the other thing too, it seemed magical. And your other videos have an eclectic of different genres in terms of folk rock, pop, blues, and hip hop as well. But in each one of the videos, I also felt the Indigenous soul coming through the music. How tell us about that.
Yeah, I think that our music is really a forum of storytelling. It comes across obviously in musical terms, but also cultural terms and terms that are based on our experiences of the past, present, and how we see the future, really. I think that when I'm writing music, it just naturally comes from who I am and the kind of life experiences that I've amassed. And when I'm writing songs, it just comes out. And I think that, we write love songs, we write topical songs, we write songs that make me feel something, that make us feel something, that, we really try to have that balance between the male and female as well, because it offers a point of view that, doesn't get to be expressed that often in music. So it's really great. And I'm also, I guess, in a fight against misogyny. So having these experiences of getting a call here. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know how to block that and keep this going.
Well, we just roll with whatever, Raven. It's
yeah. Well, So, and I get inspired by things in a moment like that. Yeah, but essentially, like, we incorporate things into our music that I think are interesting to us, but also I feel that are important. For instance, like the recent happenings, like I guess last month, they found another 177 or 170 something little children, whether they were unmarked graves or not, I'm not certain, but essentially, they were from the movement of residential schools. Mm-hmm. And it's really heartbreaking and heart-wrenching to hear these things, because most of those children passed on because of exposure, because of torture, because of starvation, because of abuse. And I think that when last year this information first started coming out, like, all of our communities got traumatized, as well as Canadian communities too, because how can we do that to human beings? It's unimaginable, and this kind of thing shouldn't have happened. And so when a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, when this announcement came out, I just had to write a song. I didn't know what to do with that, because it was so heart-wrenching that I wrote this song about that topic, and then I was able to play it out, and then I recorded it in the studio as a rough demo and listened back to it. And it's been a bit like taking my vitamin C in the morning. It's like I'll play the song when I'm in the car, or late at night, I'll just play it acoustically, because I need to work on this energy. Like, I don't want to be someone who's stuck holding this, that I don't know what to do with it. So I'm using the gifts that I have as an artist and musician to work through some of this. And I know that I can't solve these problems, but what I can do is, from a musical standpoint and as an artist, is sing about it and educate people about it, so people know about it. For instance, we're now up to the numbers of over 10,000 little babies. And most people don't know that, a lot of those babies were tortured with cattle prods, and a lot of those residential schools had electric chairs in their basements and things like that. And that should be common knowledge, but it isn't. And the other thing is that at the height of residential schools in the 1940s, the highest peak of children that were being taken away from the communities has been surpassed today. So there are more Indigenous children being taken away in childcare systems like CAS and such, and taken away from their communities. So even more so than when, residential schools were at their height. So it's important to understand that these are things that haven't just happened in the past. They're still happening today. And it's a systematic issue that we need to deal with properly. And the only way to do that is through education. We have to educate each other. And, I don't know if you felt this, but during the pandemic, there was a lot of polarization of topics. And I feel that, what I want to appeal to with people, and the way that I see acts of reconciliation happening, is that we have to see each other as human beings. Because when we see each other as human beings, we're able to actually have a narrative, because we have commonalities in those environments of conversation. And it's an important thing to carry your conversation with respect. And we need that now more than ever, because if you even look at the environment, we're in a pretty chaotic place right now. And it's going to take all of us to repair all of these big things that are going on in the world.
I absolutely agree with everything that you've said. And I think it's really important that we bring accurate history into our educational system, because we can't really have or move forward with change unless we know what the truth was in our history. And I think that in some ways you can bring forth some of that truth in your music, between you and your wife and your band. And I think I think that is helpful to draw audiences in to learn more and to become more engaged. There's lots of different ways in which we can educate people, and music and artistry is one of those ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we work with what we have. For instance, you're talking about the video, The Healer. When the pandemic was happening, we did that video with a green screen, and we borrowed a camera from a videographer, and they set it up at one end of the room, and then we sent all the footage to a person that we met online from Paris in France, and they edited the whole video together, and we kept sending them images, which they brought in, and we touched on missing, murdered, and Indigenous women and girls. We touched on, residential schools. It's basically a song about fighting against the assimilation, the oppression, and the genocide that's happened basically on Turtle Island, and how we need to work really hard to what we call Bamadzon, which is good life. And we need to invest in that. Like, it takes work to build a good life, no matter how hard you try. Like, you can go down one road, or you can work on the road that works towards peace. It works towards friendship and family and community. And I think far too often we get stuck in the individualization of the I, me, I, it's all about me. And I think that, even from a cultural sense, being Anishinaabe and Ongwehome, that our communities have always been based on the collective. And that's how we survived. And, 500 years ago, if you were in a wigwam and it's -40, you didn't survive by yourself. You survived with community. And what comes with community is a rich culture of dance and music and song. And I think that, what Shoshona and I are doing with Digging Roots is like, just modernizing what we've always done, is, trying to live our lives in the best way possible. And we're doing it with creativity, and we're doing it also to create dialogue with people. And I'm really looking forward to playing for all the smaller communities here in Ontario, because I think it's a good time for us to reach out. We're in this time of what they're calling reconciliation. And I really feel that reconciliation is only that first step. Like, to have reconciliation, you would have an ally. So we need more allies, but that's just the first step again, because what allies do is they become educated and aware. But really, we need to move on to the next step, which is healing. And that healing can only happen when you have co-conspirators, when people are actually going to be on the same side of the fence with you, no matter what, and will, dig in the ground with you, and we'll go through all those things. Because when we are dealing with such a terrible history, there's a lot of repatriation, and there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And one of the best ways that I know how to do that is through music, because especially when everyone's dancing in a collective and moving together, there's this real sense of unity, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, it's certainly coming through in some of the videos. I mean, I did watch more than The Healer, but I think it was The Healer that just, it was so impactful for me. But I think that, some of the phrasings, free from the fire, and you're touching on all the social justice issues in a very artistic way. And then the other one, from spring to come, talking about hope. And then, I love the one, was it Skoden with the jingle dress? and the dance that goes with that. We have to move so that we can be, what was it? We've got to move because we have too much to lose. And I think those words really speak to some of the situations that are happening around us right now, that without extrapolating, correct me if I'm wrong, but to move forward, we have to move forward and build that education. Reconciliation is just words on a page right now until all of that is put into action.
Yeah, absolutely. The song Skoden, I mean, it's colloquialism in the community, which really means like, let's go then. So it's, a patois type of word that was created in the communities. That song came out of a conversation with my son and his friends who were over just before the pandemic. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of this real push in the media about all the things that were happening in the world from an ecological standpoint. Since 1976 to the present, they've estimated, and it's an estimation because they don't have proper tools for this, but that over 70% of the life forms in the ocean are gone. And so we don't even know what that's going to do in the next few generations. And so the conversation was arising with my son and his friends about, like, you know what, this is what you guys left us. You guys left us this earth. And as a parent, I was like, okay, how can I rephrase this? And how can I create a dialogue? And, how can I say that, no, there's more than 10 years left. And so that's what this song was about. It's like, if you're not going to do anything, then you need to get out of the way and let the people that are going to do it. Because, we don't really have that kind of time anymore. We need to essentially get our stuff together, and we need to start doing some good things for the community. And that's where Skoden came in, because it's really an environmental song.
Well, the other thing, speaking of time, we are out of time, and it's been such a pleasure to speak with you, Raven, and I wish you and Shoshana and Digging Roots much success through your tours and in the future. And I'm sure we'll see you as Juno winners again in the future for your albums. And thank you so much. And stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages.
Today, I helped a senior find transportation to an important medical appointment.
Today, I helped a new mom find virtual programming so she didn't feel so isolated.
Today, I helped someone understand new government supports.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
Immediately slips, keeps his balance, fights through the check of Crosby, and he scores. And
damn, I don't know whether it hit anybody in front or not, but it looked like it just went in all the way on his own. There's the original shot, just off the shoulder and behind the net. Then he picks it up and gets it and puts it away.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Shy.
Welcome back to our last segment, which is the Adorable Adoptables with Renee. And Renee has a really special guest with us today. And who do we have, Renee?
He's a big one. And I got to say, I'm enjoying the snuggles. This big fella is taking up my entire lap. Can you have a little look at the camera for me? Thank you.
Cute.
Isn't he gorgeous? This is one of 4 puppies, and I do not have enough room on my lap for all 4. So one is showcasing on behalf of. The other 3 look exactly the same, except one of them is a girl. 3 of them are boys, all brindle in color, all big. The female's a teeny bit smaller, but I have to be honest, these are going to be giant puppies. And we have to express that because this fella who's 12 weeks of age is already over 25 pounds. So they are going to be ginormous puppies. They are Saint Bernard and Bull Mastiff mix, both of which go way over 100 pounds at full grown. The good news is he's going to be short-haired, not like the Saint Bernardy bit, right? A little less sloppy, a little less drooly, and a little less hairy, but otherwise super sized and definitely a dog that's going to require a bit of space. Now, the good news with these big dogs is that they don't have the energy level some of the smaller dogs have. So perhaps you're looking for a couch potato, this couch potato who is going to take up the entire couch. I mean, this would be your choice in that case. They have been in a home with people, not in a backyard, not in a barn. They've been handled since birth, and they've been good with other dogs and cats and well socialized. So all of these things are super important, especially with a dog that's going to be so darn big. It's important that they're not fearful, because that's a whole lot of extra work. They've received their vaccines here at the shelter. And of course, we have to remind everybody that we do not spay and neuter the little babies, which is super important for people to know, because that is something they'll have to be responsible for. And with these bigger dogs, it's a little bit more money. So it's definitely something that you need to look into before you call me, because I definitely don't want to see them back, especially pregnant or expecting or generations of. We don't want to see it. These big dogs have big litters. They've been known to have 10, 13 in a litter. It's definitely not something we want to see. Right? I mean, you're really darn cute, but we don't need any more of you. Right. The animal shelter is seeing.
This was a litter of 4?
The animal shelter got 4. I don't know how many was in the original litter. I suspect a lot more. They are 12 weeks of age, so the previous owners did have a bit of time to try to place them. Sometimes people run out of time and energy to do that, and at 12 weeks they're big puppies. That's a whole lot of work, and I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
So
Right.
these are really not apartment-sized dogs. They need a lot of room and outdoor space.
They do. Now, in saying that, they tire easily. If you're a big walker, or if you spend a lot of time outdoors, or if you're going to make up for it with affection and TLC, they would be okay in that. I mean, they're not high energy, not like a border collie or a shepherd where they need to be constantly moving or keeping busy. They're going to go for a nice long walk and sleep the rest of the day, which is nice. Now, in saying that, they are still puppies at this age. They're obviously a little more active. This guy's not doing a very good job of looking active, but they are. They also have this really great ability to shut the world off when they get stressed out. I mean, who wouldn't love that opportunity, right? To be able to just go good night for a bit. And that's what they do at this age, and that's what he is doing. But don't let it fool you, because he can be a little monkey when he's awake and full of life. That's for sure. He was chewing on my boot a few minutes ago before. So I mean, he's still going to be a puppy in every sense. Don't look at his little sleeping cute self and think that he's going to be easy, because he's not. He's going to eat the couch. Right? Right. In a good way.
Oh, so we have spring coming up.
Sure do.
Do we have any words of wisdom for us and things that we should be watching out for?
Absolutely. Please check that your pet has a piece of identification. If you are a resident of the city of Owen Sound, we want you to get your dog tags because that is how I can find you. But additionally, just make sure they've got your phone number at the very least. Even the best behaved dogs get a little adventurous, and the best behaved cats, as the spring approaches, they go on adventures. It would certainly make my life better if we could just call you and tell you where your dog is in the event he slips out the door. In saying that, also be aware wildlife is on the move. They are also reproducing and wandering. Yeah, don't call me if you've got a stray raccoon. Be aware who to call. The Ministry of Natural Resources or a wildlife custodian is your best course of action there. But at the same time, just be aware when you're walking and hiking that they're out on the move. Don't leave your little pets out for long periods of time. They are food. I hate to say that, but it's true. And just be aware that things are changing out there, right? You sound asleep.
So you might need to keep your dogs on a leash.
Please do. Yeah, please do. And keep your cats inside too. Also food, unfortunately.
And do you have any events coming up?
We do. April 8th, the Easter weekend, we will be attending the Heritage Place Mall. We're going to have some bunnies on display. We're going to be talking a little bit about education and why you don't get a bunny for Easter. You can play with them, you can take pictures with them, but you're not going to get them. In saying that, it's a great event. There's an egg hunt. The Easter Bunny will be there, the real Easter Bunny, for photos and proceeds to our spay, neuter, and medical fund. So we hope everybody is there, and that's on the 8th of April. It is from 10 until 2 at the Heritage Place Mall, and we're super excited to be there, and we love in-person events. It's excited to be back.
Well, we did miss them. Now, I do need to always check in with you. And you had a kitten, Spyro. Is that right?
We did. Spyro is still here and still available. The cat from the week before, I want to say her name was Asuna, but I called her Tuna. She has been adopted, so we're at about 80%. I mean, we're doing all right. This guy's got to go. And of course, the cat from last week, but she has a few potentials. So we're hoping maybe today or tomorrow. We're hoping. Right? Maybe somebody who takes you will take her too.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, thanks, Renee, for joining us today and bringing this sweet little guy with us. I'm sure he won't be at the shelter for too much longer. And join us next week on Great County Life, and we'll still be at home.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio.